I have your attention. If everyone would please take your seats, the program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take this opportunity to silence any electronic devices. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ken Abernathy, president of the Indiana War Memorials Foundation, and on behalf of the foundation, the Indiana War Memorials Commission, the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, and the Medal of Honor Foundation, I'd like to welcome you to the 25th anniversary celebration of Indiana's Medal of Honor Memorial. At this time, would those of you that are able please stand and remain standing for the posting of the colors by the Indiana National Guard Ceremonial Unit, the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Don Hart of the Indiana War Memorials Foundation, the National Anthem performed by Dennis Weimer, Director of the Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs, and the invocation by Indiana National Guard Chaplain, First Lieutenant Nathaniel Juniper.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in singing our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ready, post. Ready, up, right, face, forward, mark.
Please bow your heads. Almighty God, Father in heaven, we stand today in awe of your goodness. I thank you for the faithful services of the heroes who we recognize and remember today. Grant, O Lord, that we never forget their willingness to give everything for the cause of liberty. Grant them lives of peace, I pray, and walk ever with them. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please be seated. Well, welcome everybody. The planning's over. As many as you know, it takes a lot of time and resources to put on one of these type of events. So I'd like to personally thank those who made it possible. First, I'd like to acknowledge my fellow board members of the Indiana War Memorials Foundation and the members of the Indiana War Memorial Commission with their president, Bruno Rubini, and of course the staff of the Indiana War Memorials Commission and really the glue who kind of holds it all together, the executive director, Brigadier General Stuart Goodwin. Also, a shout out to our partners at the Indiana War Memorial, or the Indiana Medal of Honor Foundation and the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. I'd also like to pay a special thanks to the Indiana National Guard, not only for their service to our country and our state, but also for their support of today's event. I'd also like to thank the Indiana State Museum for donating the use of this beautiful facility for our event today, and also our volunteers. We have volunteers from the Veterans Force Veterans Group at Salesforce. Thank you. And we're also very grateful for our corporate sponsors. Without their generous donation and financial support, this event wouldn't have been possible. And beyond this event, they're not only good community members, but they also huge supporters of our military and veterans throughout the year. To our Patriot sponsor level, Rolls-Royce, and to our star level sponsors, Allison Transmission, Pacer Sports and Entertainment, PNC Bank, and V2X. Thank you. Again, thank you to all who made this possible. And I'd like to recognize a few of our distinguished guests, some of whom you'll be hearing from later in the program. Vice President Mike Pence, NCAA President Charlie Baker, and our very special guests, the Medal of Honor recipients Sammy Davis, Britt Sabinski, and Earl Plumley. Also joining us is Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett, who provided a proclamation. It'll be on display with the photos of the original dedication, declaring today Medal of Honor Remembrance Day in Indianapolis. Thank you, Mayor Hogsett. The Indianapolis War Memorial Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides financial support to the Indiana War Memorial Commission. The commission manages 25 acres of property in downtown Indianapolis that contains a museum, 5 fountains, parks, memorials and monuments, including the Medal of Honor Memorial across the canal. In all, there's 48 sites honoring veterans on our military in Indianapolis. No city in the nation has more acreage honoring veterans than Indianapolis, and only Washington, D.C. has more monuments and memorials to those who've served in our armed forces. The Medal of Honor Memorial is one of those, and one of only 3 congressionally designated Medal of Honor sites in the country. The driving force behind the building of the Indianapolis Memorial here was John Hottewell, the former chairman of Indianapolis Power and Light, or IPL, now known as ACS, and his wife, Carolyn. Unfortunately, Carolyn passed away several years ago, and John cannot be with us today. However, earlier this week, I got a letter from John, and a very touching letter, where he described to me the motivation and what went behind the founding of the actual memorial. The letter's too long to read here, but with John's permission, I'll take the liberty of paraphrasing some of his comments. John said, "The inspiration for the dedication of the War Memorial, the Medal of Honor Memorial, began on a Sunday morning in June of 1998. A tornado had recently passed through Indianapolis, cutting service to about 150 of their customers. So John and Carolyn were having breakfast before going to an IPL service site to assist staff workers to restore services. He said he looked over, and Carolyn was reading the newspaper and began crying as she was reading a newspaper article about the upcoming reunion of Medal of Honor recipients in Saratoga Springs, New York. John said he offered to read the rest of the article to her, but as he read the article, he too started crying. He was so moved by the article. And John later suggested to Carolyn that maybe they could get one or two of the Medal of Honor recipients to come to the Indianapolis 500 in May and be Grand Marshals at the Indiana 500 parade, which at that time was sponsored by IPL. So he contacted the Medal of Honor Society, who said they would canvass the recipients and gauge the interest. Well, the interest was overwhelming. And John said later that night when he was telling Carolyn about the tremendous response, she said, "Why don't we invite them all?" So at Carolyn's urging, John presented a plan to the IPL Board of Directors for hosting, at that time, up to 150 living Medal of Honor recipients and their spouses as guests and co-grand marshals of the IPL 500 parade. John said the IPL board was universally supportive and immediately set about finding an appropriate way to recognize each of them. They came up with ideas like planting a tree or some such thing. One of the board members, Sally Rowland, suggested she knew two well-known designers who might have some ideas and suggestions on how to best commemorate the coming of the recipients. As it turns out, those designers, Eric Fulford and Ann Reed, essentially laid out what ultimately became the Medal of Honor Memorial as it looks today. Working closely with Indiana Medal of Honor recipients Sammy Davis and Melvin Biddle, as well as state and local officials, all approvals were obtained by the end of 1998, and work began on a cold January morning in 1999. With only 5 months to complete the project, John said that Sammy was at the site nearly every day, and that every one of the craftsmen involved was excited to work on a project given its patriotic significance. Work was completed just a few days before the official presentation of the memorial to the recipients on May 29th, 1999. On the day of its unveiling, 96 of the then 150 living Medal of Honor recipients were present to receive their memorial. So fast forward to 2016, when Indiana War Memorials Commissioner Executive Director Stuart Goodwin was approached by one of AES's vice president who wanted to discuss a transfer of the Medal of Honor property obtained in their acquisition of APL. Now, Stuart knew there was no way the state could ever cover the cost of owning and maintaining the memorial with state funding. Then AES informed General Goodwin that the transfer came with an endowment of $1.4 million that would allow them not only obtain, but to maintain the memorial at no cost to the state. General Goodwin presented a proposal for the transfer of the Medal of Honor memorial property to the state, and then Governor Mike Pence, who wholeheartedly approved transfer of the Medal of Honor memorial to the Indiana War Memorials Commission, an example of Governor Pence's legacy of supporting our military. Today, Indiana is honored to be a small part of this recognition of these true American heroes. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce a very special guest, a native Hoosier. He's the son of a Korean War veteran, brother of a U.S. Marine, proud father of a Marine aviator, and father-in-law of a naval aviator. After serving 6 years in Congress representing Indiana, he was elected the 50th governor of Indiana. That was followed by service as the 48th Vice President of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce my friend and former boss, Vice President Mike Pence.
Well, thank you, Colonel Abernathy. It is good to be back home again in Indiana. It's hard to think how quickly time passes. But 25 years ago this year, as a radio talk show host, I was invited to come to the dedication, a memorial to America's greatest heroes. And I remember setting up a tent, Mr. Mayor, and folding chairs and broadcast equipment, and being able to sit down and speak to those heroes that day. And the journey that my family's been on over the last 25 years have been humbling, and it's been a privilege, but I must tell you, I count it as a real joy to be standing here with some of those heroes and with other heroes gathered here to celebrate 25 years of the Indianapolis Medal of Honor Memorial. Thank you all for being here. Today we will honor those who have gone above and beyond the call of duty. We'll have the great privilege of hearing from a few who lived through moments and learned about their own character and their love for this country in ways that very few of us will ever have the opportunity to know. It's a joy for me to be here, not only with Colonel Abernathy, who I invite you to join me in recognizing Colonel Ken Abernathy for his love for this project, his love for our service members, and his leadership of this foundation. And to my friend Governor Charlie Baker, who you'll hear from momentarily, to Mayor Joe Hogsett, to members of the Indiana General Assembly, but most especially to all of those who have worn the uniform of the United States or wear the uniform today. It's an honor to be with all of you. I'm always humbled to be among men and women who served in our armed forces. As Kent mentioned, my father was a combat veteran in the Korean War. I'm the proud father of a captain in the United States Marine Corps, and one of my unworthy son-in-laws, a lieutenant in the Navy. But my life did not take me into the uniform of the United States. So it's humbling to be among so many of you that answered that call. But as I know all the rest of you in the room feel, I'm especially humbled today. Especially humbled today to be here with three of America's greatest heroes. With Indiana's own retired Army Sergeant First Class Sammy Davis. With retired Navy Commander Master Chief Britt Slavinsky. And with retired Army Master Chief Sergeant Earl Plumley. These are three men among the more than 3,500 Americans whose names are etched on the walls of that memorial just across the canal. But their stories will be forever etched in the hearts of a grateful nation. You will hear from them today, but even a short glance at what it is they did, I know will remind each one of us of who we have the privilege of being in the presence of. Hoosiers all know the story of Sammy Davis, November 1967, under withering machine gun fire. Injured, gave his comrades cover fire, ignored warnings, took over a howitzer that was on fire, shelled the enemy, and then with a broken back, swam across a river to save three of his comrades. Or the story of Massachusetts' own Britt Slavinsky, March 2002 at the Battle of Takrashar. A Navy SEAL leading a recon team, helicopter crashed. Senior Chief Slavinsky led an assault for 14 hours, continued to fight until the hill was secured. And Earl Plumley of Oklahoma, a weapons sergeant, 1st Special Forces, was at a forward operating base, Ghazni, in Afghanistan in August of 2013. A massive explosion breached the wall. He ran to the fight, not away from it. Put himself in harm's way to protect one of his comrades, continued to advance against the enemy, carried comrades off the battlefield, held the position until relief came. Men and women, we remember across this canal, but we are in the presence of three of America's greatest heroes. A strong nation must always honor its heroes. We build monuments like the one here in Indianapolis to pay tribute to the greatest among us. But I think they'd be very quick to recognize it's not merely to preserve history, It's to inspire. It's to inspire men and women and future generations to step forward, to serve the nation they love. In these days of widening threats abroad, these heroes give us hope. You know, as I close, I'm always struck by a story in the 7th chapter of the book of Luke, where Jesus was approached by a soldier who told him of a member of his household who was ill. And as Jesus began to walk with him back to his home, the soldier said to him, "I'm not worthy to have you under my roof." He said, "I'm a man under authority. I tell this one to do this, he does it. I tell that one to do this, they do it." He said, "If you only say the word, they'll be healed." And the Bible records to us, quote, "When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him. And turning to the crowd following him, he said, I tell you, I have not found such great faith, even in Israel." 25 years on, my hope and my prayer, Mr. Mayor, is maybe 25 years from now, when maybe you have some gray hair. There'll be many Hoosiers and many Americans who stopped at this memorial, who reflected on these stories, and who left amazed at what these Americans had done. And just as one fellow Hoosier to another, let me thank each and every one of you for what you've done to preserve the legacy and the story of these great American heroes. So may God bless all of them, those that are here and those that we remember. May God bless all the members of our armed forces, past and present and future. And may God continue to bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Vice President Pence, for those really inspiring words and wonderful memories of the Medal of Honor Memorial dedication. In addition to our event here today, the Medal of Honor recipients will be honored during halftime of the NCAA tournament game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse tonight. Just so happens it's going to be a Purdue game. How about that? Some people in the room may like that. Some people may not like that. I got both in my household, so it's going to be kind of dicey. At this time, I'd like to introduce their host for the event. Prior to assuming his current role, Charlie Baker, a former college athlete at Harvard, served as the 72nd governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And prior to his tenure as governor, he had a distinguished career in business, nonprofit, and government administration, including serving as CEO of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, a nonprofit health benefits provider. He arrived at the NCAA just 1 year ago today, or this month, March 2023, becoming only the 6th president in NCAA history, and at a time of significant transformation. Please join me in welcoming NCAA President Charlie Baker.
Please. I should be standing for all of you. I'm going to tell two stories. And I hope when I finish those stories, it will be easy for you to understand the lesson that I'd like to impart at the end. The first story is shortly after I took office as governor, we had an opportunity to meet with the Medal of Honor Society to talk about the possibility of having their annual convention in Boston, Massachusetts. And I came into my office and there was a room of 25 people in it, and I shook everybody's hand and they all told me who they were. Everybody was dressed for the most part in sort of what I would call business casual. We sat down, we had our meeting, they talked about some of the stuff they were looking for. We talked about some of the stuff we wanted to do in addition to what they were looking for. because the opportunity to host this very special community was something that we were really interested in doing. And then sort of finished all that talk, and I said, is there anything else? And one of the older gentlemen in the room raised his hand, and I called on him, and he said, you know, I'd really like a helicopter ride. And I looked at him and I said, well, yeah, maybe we'll talk about that later. And I'm thinking, that was weird. And so then we take pictures, which is what used to happen every time any group would come in to meet. We go stand in front of the flags and take our pictures. And so he comes over, he stands next to me, shakes my hand, introduces himself to me again. And he says, what about that helicopter ride? And I said, believe me, it's the first thing I'm going to find out about when I leave here. And so he looks up at me and goes, you're pretty tall. And I said, yeah, I hear that a lot. And he looked up again and he goes, I used to fly with a guy who was about your size. We called him too tall. And I looked at him and I said, that's pretty interesting, because there was a guy named Too Tall, Ed Freeman. He was actually a Medal of Honor recipient too. He got it flying helicopters in and out of the Ayadrang Valley when the medevacs wouldn't go in because it was too hot and scary. And he saved the lives of dozens of American servicemen. He deserved to get the Medal of Honor. But you know what's really interesting about that story? His commanding officer was a guy named Bruce Crandall. And Bruce Crandall was supposed to get the Medal of Honor first. And Bruce Crandall said, you know what? I was the commanding officer. I had to be there. You should give it to Ed Freeman instead. And that's how Ed Freeman got the Medal of Honor. And then they came back and they gave it to Bruce Crandall afterwards. Now, everyone on my team knows this is Bruce Crandall. And they're all looking at me, watching me tell this story, just waiting for me to discover who I'm standing next to. So he looks up at me at that point. He goes, Bruce Crandall, that's right, that's me. That's what I said when I came in. Now can I have the helicopter ride? Bruce, they did come to Massachusetts, and Bruce Crandall got a helicopter ride. We actually flew all of them out to various parts of Massachusetts to meet with high school kids to talk about what civic responsibility and teamwork and commitment was all about. And it was a beautiful thing. The second story is about this coin that I carry around everywhere I go. It's Jared Monte's coin. Jared Monte received the Medal of Honor for heroism in Afghanistan. Now, the reason I have this coin, it's about the second year I was governor. A guy named Paul Monte came up to me after one of our events around this time of year. I think it was a Memorial Day event. And he said, Governor, I've heard you speak about our military and our men and women who serve, and I'd really like you to have my son's coin. He served in the military. And that's all he said to me. We talked for a couple of minutes. I learned he was a retired high school teacher. He taught science. He lived in the south coast of Massachusetts. And I said, geez, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I put it in my pocket, and I got home that night, and I looked up Jared Monte. And it told the story of the firefight in which he ultimately received posthumously the Medal of Honor for heroism. And I just thought, my God, I can't believe this guy just said, my son served in the military. He didn't give me like the whole show with respect to who his son really was and what he did and what he stood for. So then I Googled Paul Monte just to see what would come up. It turns out that this retired science teacher, he's probably in his mid-60s at this point, is actually responsible for a change in federal government policy that makes it possible to put flags on the stones of those who served in veteran cemeteries across this country on Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Veterans Day. Because, you bet, because after his son died and was laid to rest at the Veterans Cemetery in Bourne, Massachusetts, he went there on Memorial Day to plant a flag on his son's stone. And he was told, you can't do that. Because if we let everybody do that, it'd just be too complicated to figure out how we would actually manage the maintenance and the cleanup and the upkeep and all the rest. And so Paul Monty, this 5'7", 60-something retired science teacher, went to work with one objective in mind. And that objective was somehow he was going to make it possible for people to put their flags on their loved ones' stones on American national holidays. And it took him about 3 years to do it, but he built a giant national coalition. And eventually the Veterans Administration just said, no mas, we can't handle this anymore, you're killing us. And they made it possible for people to do that. And as a result, in veteran cemeteries all over this country, on Memorial Day and the 4th of July and Veterans Day, you go visit one of those, you will see a cast of thousands laying out flags across all those stones, coming back a week later and picking them up and doing it again on the 4th of July and again on Veterans Day. That's who Paul Monty was. And I spoke at his funeral and I said at the time that I had no idea who he and his son were when I had a chance to meet them originally, and he had a chance to tell me, quote unquote, his story, just like Bruce Crandall, who didn't say a thing to me about who he was until I figured it out. And that brings me to the point I want to make here, which is, as much as we build memorials, and God bless us for doing that. I live right down the street from the Civil War Memorial here in the city of Indianapolis. I can see it out my window and I look at it basically every night. As much as we do, and as much as we try to tell a grateful nation how much the men and women who serve mean to us, and especially their families who lose loved ones as a result, for them, it's always about the person on the right and the person on their left. The humility, the sense of anonymity. In a day and age where so many people can't wait to tell you how cool they are and how great they are and what they did yesterday or what they're going to do tomorrow, these people are humble and kind. They're patriots, and most importantly of all, they believe it's about us and not about them. And I carry this coin so that I am constantly reminded that my opportunity to serve as an elected member of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts state government sits on the shoulders of so many kind, decent, honorable men and women who put it all on the line for this great and beautiful thing we call democracy. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do. We will never, ever forget you. God bless.
Mr. Baker, thank you for your remarks and for your years of support for the Medal of Honor recipients and their mission. My name is John Schertzer. I serve as the Executive Director of the Medal of Honor Foundation. We simply seek resources to support the Congressional Medal of Honor Society's numerous programs and activities. This includes our K-12 Character Development Program, our Citizen Honors Awards, which will take place just this Monday night on Medal of Honor Day, which is March 25th, and outreach programs like this today. On your tables, there's a table tent with a QR code you can scan to read more about our work, but more importantly, read about the amazing stories of the 3 recipients I am about to introduce. Are you ready to meet them? So am I. I'll introduce them, and let's give them each a big Hoosier welcome. First, Indiana's own retired Army Sergeant First Class Sammy Davis from Vietnam. Come on, Sammy. Yep. Yeah. Retired Army Master Sergeant Earl Plumley, War on Terror, Afghanistan.
And our moderator and the president of the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, retired Navy Command Master Chief Britt Slabinski, War on Terror, Afghanistan. Gentlemen, the stage is yours.
Wow. How we doing, fellas? Yeah, look it up. Just look it up. Well, it's an absolute privilege for us to be here with you all today. I see a lot of uniforms out in the crowd. With a show of hands, how many of you are currently serving or have served in our services? So we've been retired for a little while. You've been 2 months. 2 months. But I got to tell you, being here around so many uniforms and so many of them served, I tell you, this is a little bit like coming home for me, right? Being literally with family. So I don't know, how do you guys feel about it? Sure. Yeah. Warm room. Warm room. Sammy, I don't know if you remember this or not, but we first met back in the early 1990s. And I was in Camp Atterbury, going through sniper training school when I was a brand new SEAL, fresh out. I think that there's still some dust on my trident coming out of the box. And just towards the end of graduation, here walks up you and gives us a speech, and it made a profound impact, on me and my other classmates. So I just wanted to say, hey, thank you for continuing to do what you do and going out there and making a difference and influencing things, because as I like to say, the DNA of so many other people is embedded in the medals that we wear, and I think part of your DNA is in there, Sammy. So
thank you, brother. And our job isn't done yet. The things that are going to be facing America in the next few coming years is going to be a test for all of us. And we must stand up firmly for what you believe is right in your heart. No politics. You stand up for what you believe is right in your heart. Cool?
Great. So, gentlemen, we're coming up on Medal of Honor Day, which is March 25th. And it's March 25th because that's the date of the first Medal of Honor that was awarded in 1863 for the Great Train Robbery, which is a pretty cool story if you haven't read about it. But I thought I'd begin our questioning, and I'll give this first one to you, Sammy, and then hand it over to Earl. Being our questioning was about the term hero gets thrown around a lot, and I thought I'd take a few minutes here. Let's just talk about what's your definition of a hero?
The definition of hero is love. Think about it. That's what this medal represents. It's the love that I had for my brothers and sisters. And it has continued to inspire me today. The love that I have for my country and for all who have served continues on. And that's what we must pass on to the next generation is, this medal's not about bravery. I'm not a brave man. I'm still scared of the dark, and I'm 77 years old. But I love my country, and I love my fellow countrymen. And that's what we need to encourage everybody to stand up for what you believe is right in your heart. Whoa.
Yes. Earl, what do you think?
So for me, I think I was a Marine, and they had a thing. What is discipline? And discipline is doing what's right when no one's around. And for me, a hero is somebody that does something difficult when they didn't have to. If you have to do it, argue whether that's bravery or not. But if if you didn't have to do something difficult, but you chose to put yourself in that position, I would say that is my definition of a hero.
I would agree with that. I would add to both of yours to say that is someone that is willing to step up, to give up all their hopes and dreams and safety and security and all their future for someone else's. Right? And that ended up being, yeah, that is love indeed. Since it is Medal of Honor Day, this is rare where you have one Medal of Honor recipient interviewing some other ones. So I'm not a trained moderator, so let's work through it here. Medal of Honor Day is coming up. We have our Citizen Honors program coming. We're going to go to the Tomb of the Unknowns and lay a wreath, very similar to what we're going to do out here in a few minutes. But let's spend a minute talking about the medal. So what does the medal, what's it mean to you, Sammy? What's the Medal of Honor mean?
When I hold my medal, it brings back the memory of my brothers in Vietnam and the looks on their faces when they seen that I was coming across the river to get them. Because they thought that they were all done. They thought it was all done. And when they seen me coming across the river, I mean, it says in my citation that I couldn't swim. And it didn't mean I didn't know how, it just means because my back was broke, I shot 30 times, had an AK-47 round in my right leg. I couldn't swim. But I asked the one above to give me the strength to get my air mattress and go over and get my brothers. And he answered that call, and he's still there. I mean, it's amazing. We don't lose till we quit trying. I didn't think I was going to survive that night, but that was the message that he continued to give me. You don't lose till you quit trying. I just kept going, and that's why I'm still here today. And yep, I hurt, but you don't lose till you quit trying. So let us all keep trying and pass on this love that we have in our heart for our nation, for our fellow man, to the next generation, and help them understand why it's important for them to stand up while what they believe is right in their hearts.
So, I still don't know precisely what it means to me. I used to know exactly what the Medal of Honor was until they made me wear one, and it totally turned my world upside down. But and I guess just as a Green Beret kind of take on it is, I know a lot of stories of bravery on the battlefield that other Green Berets have done that merits the Medal of Honor. Just by the nature of that work, they will never be recognized for one reason or the other. And so for me, I get to be that demonstration of soldierly merit that represents my community. So it's a good example of my brothers that will never be recognized. So that's what it means to me. And since you keep skipping yourself, as the moderator, and
I'm in charge.
Yeah.
I'm in charge.
What does it mean to you?
Well, to me, I mean, it is quite an uncomfortable place to be for me. When I first got the call that the medal was coming my way, it came from our Secretary of Defense at the time, which was General Mattis, and called me and says, "Hey, you're going to be getting a call tomorrow from this pretty high-ranking guy in the government." And you kind of know, I was like, you should just say it. And he says, "The medal's coming your way." And I said, "No, sir, it's not, because it's not me, right? It's my teammates. Let me tell you about some real heroes that were there on the mountain, those to my left and my right, the 7 that perished with us, the 7 severely wounded. There's so much valor going on there today. No. And you know what he said to me? He said, "Master Chief, I understand your sentiment, but just shut up and follow orders." And Secretary of Defense and General Mattis tells you to follow orders. He said, yes, sir. Yeah, I'll take the call tomorrow. But it means to, I mean, to now having been the recipient of it, and that, you know, there's a certain almost weight to it, would you say? Tremendous weight to it. I think a friend of ours calls it the, what's Kyle call it? The beautiful burden.
Beautiful burden.
I think that's a great way to put it, that the way I look at it now is the very metal, if you will, to take a play on words, is of our nation is embedded in it. That's the way that I look at it.
Okay.
But I mean, since you know, since being recipients, I mean, how has it changed your lives? You first.
I quit walking on the grass. I used to. I don't anymore. No, it has made me much more careful in my behavior, because before I was just a member of a team, and then the vice president asked me about this. How did things change? And at first, there was no change, because the men that I served with, when I earned the medal, that's who I continued to serve with. And then as younger service members came in, and I started being around them, I saw that palpable shift in how they perceived me, and which made me really look in the mirror, and hold myself to just a little bit higher standard at all times, because I was, not just a mentor by manner of my rank, but as a recipient, those guys are emulating and repeating everything I say. So I really started pausing before I talk, and tried not to say crazy things, because I was an absolute lunatic as a younger man, so I try not to tell those stories either.
Being a recipient of the Medal of Honor, gosh, that's been over 50 years ago. It has always encouraged me to stand up a little taller. No, don't have that third beer. It's just always encouraged me to do the very best I can because of this and what it represents, and I would never want to do anything that would cause harm to the idea of the Medal of Honor. And having that in my heart has helped me be a better person. That and my Dixie, she encourages me to be a better man. But as I've said earlier, you don't lose till you quit trying. And yeah, the temptation's still there, but I hang in there and I do the very best I can. Cool?
I'd say we probably didn't get put in this situation because we always followed the rules.
That is, yeah, that's pretty. I was worried about getting Article 15 when I got back from the battle. I was not supposed to be over there.
For me, once the medal came, it was good leverage for my wife, because she went to the kids and said, "You know what's living in this house right now? You know there's a medal in this house. You better not do any of that."
Emotional blackmail. Yes.
It totally worked. It totally worked.
My youngest son, he didn't know that every Green Beret didn't have a Medal of Honor. He just started figuring that out. So that was growing pain in our house.
Sam, you kind of alluded to this earlier, but we have, the Medal of Honor Foundation did a poll a couple years ago, and John Scherzer, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we did a poll about patriotism and values, and there's several of them out there that it's on the decline in our country right now. So I wonder if we could spend a few minutes just talking about patriotism, what it is, and maybe what can we do, all of us, what can we do to bring that back to the forefront of our lives?
Patriotism is the love of your country and what it represents. And what patriotism is and our country represents is we the people, right? We just have to keep ensuring that everyone stands up for what they believe is right in our heart. Dixie and I are on the road 200 plus days a year traveling and speaking, and we do a great number of schools, And I speak from kindergarten through university. I enjoy talking to a third grade class, and I always open it up to question and answer. And the questions that they ask, because I tell them I will answer any question that you have. And they're awesome, but we have good kids in this country. I believe that 100% in my heart. We've got parents that need work, but we have good kids. And that's why it's so important, I believe, is that we all spend time going talking to schools and being with our youth and encouraging them to stand up for what they believe is right. I have a firm belief that we're all born knowing what is right in our hearts. We let other parts of our body lead us occasionally, but we know what is right in our hearts. And that's what I encourage everyone to do, is to stand up firmly for what you believe is right in your heart. Whoop.
So patriotism in decline. I don't see it. Oh, I hope it's just a passing. Should you be born rabidly proud of America? Probably not. And so what I always tell, especially young kids, is when I pledge allegiance to the flag, and when especially at a game, and they sing the national anthem, I tear up a little bit. I wasn't born like that. So I'm profoundly proud of this country, and would continue to serve it if I could, or if they asked, I would instantly answer the nation's call. And if you don't like the country I've built, then build one that you can be proud of, but be proud of something. And I often challenge the youth to that. So if you're not proud of the country, get it to where when you look at that flag, you feel like I do, because there's nothing better than that.
Show of hands. Did anybody out here get goosebumps when we were singing Pledge of Allegiance and all that? Anybody get goosebumps? So we should take that as a poll right there to say maybe something's still working.
I think everything's fine. I think the youth of today, I think they're just a little more reserved than we were, and I think it's healthy that they don't instantly say yes to things like that. I think that's the sign of a healthy democracy. Are you proud of this country? At 14, your answer probably should be undecided, because you don't know enough to be proud or hate this country. So I think it's a healthy thing. And by the time you're 30, if you haven't found one side of that coin or the other, I challenge whether you're emotionally healthy enough to vote at all.
Maybe that applies to some folks too, maybe. So you mentioned the flag at the end of your comments there, and I said when I look at the flag, I look at it differently now. And I look at, of course, we all know like what the red flag stands for, right? Do we know that? Right? Everything that's been given for it, right? All the blood that's been given for it. The white, what's the white? The white stripes. Purity, innocence. The blue, yeah, freedom, justice. We know what the stars are for, right? Okay, just check. But what the flag represents to me, of course, you have the Constitution in there, right? You think of that when you look at the flag. You see our Bill of Rights and that awesome attitude of the Declaration of Independence, right? But just think of everything that was going on in the minds of the men that wrote that thing that day. It's all embedded in there, but it is all part of the program. But when I look at it now, I just look at it a little different. Like if you look at the flag right here at me, and you check it out, like you see, hey, there's something holding all of that together. And of course, what is it? It's the stitching, isn't it? No one ever sees that or thinks twice about it, but the next time you see a flag getting beat up in the wind and it's starting to pull apart, right? Think of that last little stitch that's right there, giving its all just to hold it together when the winds of adversity are trying to tear it apart. And then eventually it gives, because it can't give anymore, right? And then there's another one right next in line, just standing by, ready to take its weight, say, hey, I gotcha. Right? That's what I think about when I think about our flag. I think about our union, to say it's just, no one thinks about it when it's all calm, but it's the thread woven in and out of within that holds it all together. That's my definition of patriotism. received the medal. The action was in 2002, March 2002. I received the medal in 2018. And I was really quite thankful that there was a delay because it allowed me to do 14 more deployments after that first one. I think had the, maybe stuff's not quite so right up here. but when I went to my first convention, the first Medal of Honor convention was in Anniversary. It was literally like 2 months after my ceremony. And I walked into the convention hall, and there were like 44 Medal of Honor recipients in this room. And I remember walking in, stopped dead in my tracks at the door, and I looked in the room, and I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm going in the room. Like, yeah, no, like, how can I possibly be worthy there? And I remember there was a recipient in a wheelchair that saw me, and he realized that I was a new guy. And he got up out of his wheelchair. His daughter was there trying to hold him down, like, no, Dad, don't get up, right? So he had to get up, right? And he gets up and he walks over to me, and his words were, hey, welcome to the family. And instantly, all that anxiety just went out of me. That's that love that you were talking about, right? So here's my question. Sammy, I'll start with you. Unknown caller. Let's take that call right now. Let's see, who is it?
So warranty. Warranty, extended warranty.
Pardon me. Question again?
Yeah. So the question is, you've met a lot of recipients.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, there's some of them that I've been like, man, I wish I would have had 30 seconds to talk to that person. Is there one or a couple of recipients that you can remember that are gone now, that we remember, that we'll remember going out to the wall? Are there a couple of names on that wall that you're just like, that one right there stands out to me?
I remember meeting Pappy Boy and how he inspired me. And it's not that he said anything great or grand, but just I knew who Pappy Boynton was. And the fact that he was willing to stand there and encourage me and give me a hug just inspired me tremendously. Jimmy Doolittle, I had the privilege of meeting Jimmy Doolittle. I mean, just all these old recipients. One of the reasons why I continue on today, traveling and speaking all over the country, is to encourage America to stand up for what we owe these men that did this, 100 years ago. It's what it's taken to keep us free today, and what it's going to take to keep our children and grandchildren and great-grandkids free tomorrow, because we can't let it down. Think of all the people who have given everything so that we can be here today. It's our job to make sure that our future generations will be able to be here tomorrow. Cool?
So I too, when I came to my first convention, I was like a kid in a candy store because I grew up.
Me, wasn't it?
It was you. I was so excited. I kept poking my wife and I was like, "Do you know who that is? Do you know who that is?" Because I had the coffee table book and I had a lot of the narratives memorized. So I just remember being profoundly excited to be in the room. But I guess my biggest, I'll just put my biggest regret that I didn't get to meet was Woody Williams, and I missed him twice. As a Marine, I was supposed to take him to Iwo Jima as an escort, and unfortunately, there was an attack around 2001 that kind of canceled that. So I didn't get to do that then, and I deployed immediately following my ceremony, so I didn't get to meet him then, and then he passed, and I never got to. So I think that's my biggest regret.
Woody's my guy.
Yeah,
Woody's my guy. So
that's every recipient. Shucks, you missed a good thing.
Such a good man. And my first time meeting him, I walk up to him and he comes up and he same thing. He's like, "Yeah, you're the new guy." I was like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "Don't call me sir." I was like, "Yes, sir." He comes up to me, and I mean, we have a few Marines in here, right? You polish your medals, right? So Navy doesn't do that. Right? So he comes up to me and he goes, "Son, you gotta put some shine on that medal." And I was like, "Yes, sir, but the Navy doesn't do that." And he's like, "Yep, I hear that. You better put some shine on that medal." I was like, "Yes, sir, I'll get on that right away."
My medal shines because of all the children because every school, we pass it around to every student, and you watch what they do. They grab it and look at it, and then they rub it with their thumb. And my mind's got a glow to it. That's awesome. The only time it was cleaned professionally was when it was stolen here in Indianapolis, and when Ron Gray, he had it taken in and cleaned. And that's the only time.
That's a crazy story, but I got one final question for you both.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be the hardest one ever. Okay. Who's your favorite superhero? Favorite superhero?
All right, I'm a Batman guy. You can't be brave unless you get hurt. So Superman's not a hero.
Favorite. So let's. Are you Marvel or are you DC? Marvel works. Okay. So who's your favorite Marvel superhero?
My mind's blank at the moment.
Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse. And he always stands up for what he believes is right.
Stands up for what's right. Yeah. I'm with her. I'm a Batman guy. As my wife will say it sometimes, I'm like a glossy black. I think we're out of time. I think we got to go to that.
All right.
Anything else you guys want to say before we close out?
I appreciate all of you coming here and sharing your love with us. God bless you. Our job's not over yet.
Wow, how about that, huh? Thank you. One more. What a historic discussion, huh? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, so at this time, our Medal of Honor recipients are going to be making their way across the canal for the laying of the wreath at the Medal of Honor Memorial. And as they do, we'd ask the guests, you can exit out the doors to my front, your rear, to the apron, and you'll be able to view the laying of the wreath. It's diagonally across the way there, across the canal. For those guests, if there's some of you do wish to remain inside, there's a little bit of room. You can probably see through the glass there if you'd like. And I'd also ask at the conclusion of the wreath laying, and the singing of America the Beautiful by Staff Sergeant Jenna Burke of the Indiana National Guard, if you'd please return here to your seats in the Great Hall for the conclusion of the ceremony. Our staff will now assist you and direct you to the viewing of the laying of the wreath.